The same. So tell me, how have you been since last session?
I'm still avoiding class. You know, my poli sci teacher, he keeps saying the word rape, and it just, I can't go. I don't do anything. I just, kind of just stay in bed.
Okay. So it sounds like some of the same behaviors that you were mentioning having experienced before. And when we talked last time, do you remember that core belief, that schema that we had talked about last time?
Yeah. What was it? I'm weak.
Was that you were weak? Yeah. So how do you feel and what do you think about maybe that seeing some of these behaviors lining up now after having identified that core belief from last time?
Whatever you want to do. Hopefully it helps.
Okay. So there's actually this technique I want to try. It's called the unidirectional continuum. And so I'm going to draw it on the board. What we're going to do is we're going to start with identifying what you might be if you weren't weak.
If I wasn't weak, I guess I'd be strong.
Strong. Okay. So I'm going to put I am strong. Okay. And we're going to, like I said, this is a continuum, so we want to think along the lines of something like this. So over here we have 100% strong, and then here we have 0 strength. So not necessarily weakness, but just an absence of strength on this end. So right now, just off the bat, where do you think you might put yourself?
Probably at about like 10. This is me. I'm like a 10.
You're at about a 10%. Okay. So what we're going to do with this continuum, we're going to list some of the characteristics of what you think 100% strength might be. So again, we're looking at this meant to be extremes just right now. So 100% strong. What might that person look like? And you'll just go ahead and jot them down.
If I were strong, I'd probably be like motivated to go to class.
Okay. So motivated.
I probably talk to people more, like engage, because I really don't do that much now.
Okay, so somebody who is 100% strong, they on the extreme end would have lots of friends and be socializing all of the time, right? Okay, so social
engagement.
Okay. Alright, so what might also a person who's 100% strong, what would their thinking be like?
They kind of be able to like reign over their emotions, like control their emotions, or have like coping skills maybe.
Okay, so I heard 2 things. So they would have 100% control over their thinking, and then you mentioned also having coping strategies. So somebody who could cope effectively all of the time. So in control of thinking. We'll do one more here. What might they do as far as, we mentioned coping, but would they have any kind of self-care technique, already practicing anything for themselves?
They'd be physically strong.
They'd be physically strong as well. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and put that on there. Okay, great. So we're going to come over here. Do you want to trade spots, maybe make it a little easier for you? Okay, so here we're going to have 0%. And this one's going to be just the absence of strength.
No motivation.
Okay, so if no motivation, someone who has no motivation, what kind of behavioral characteristics would they have if they're absolutely not motivated at all?
Sluggish.
Okay, yeah, sluggish. Well, they might be a slug just in general with 0% motivation. Okay?
They probably wouldn't get out much, maybe.
Or at all,
Yeah.
being 0%, zero strength.
Okay.
So no desire to get out at all, just so they would be just at home.
Can I write hermit?
Sure. This is your list. What makes sense to you? Okay. So we have coping here. So if they have 0 coping skills,
They wouldn't be able to cope at all.
okay, so then what might happen to somebody who has 0 coping skills?
They can't function,
Okay.
and if, like their inability to function altogether, maybe.
Yeah, so somebody who maybe couldn't cope, they couldn't function because they couldn't deal with what they were going through. So have you ever met anybody who just couldn't deal? What kind of behaviors did they maybe do?
I have a friend. She just goes like out to the hospital all the time.
Okay, so maybe somebody who is in and out of the hospitals, maybe who's multiple suicide attempts, it sounds like, or maybe even the completion of suicide. So somebody might go there. So we can just put no coping now that we've kind of listed all of what that looks like. Alright. So we have somebody who's 100% strong is in control of their thinking. So somebody who has 0% strength. So no control of their thinking. What might happen if there's 0 control of their thinking?
It's kind of the same with the, like, I guess coping skills, you know, like going to the hospital or just not being present.
Okay.
Just there, like vegetable like state.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and put that on there.
I guess I like the word preoccupied.
Preoccupied. Okay, so that sounds like to me somebody who's just maybe their thoughts are just racing all of the time. They're thinking and feeling and acting on everything. Okay, so preoccupied is a good one. Alright, and then this last one here we have somebody who's physically fit / strong. So somebody who isn't,
They don't work out at all.
so 0 working out, so no exercise. Okay, so let's do about a 50% mark. So somebody who has about 50% strength.
Sorry, it's just a lot for me.
I can understand, so let's dig in.
Maybe half the time they get out of bed and half the time they don't.
Okay.
Half the time they use like coping skills.
Okay. So if somebody is able to use their coping skills like half the time, does that mean they're still able to recognize though? So for somebody who's maybe 50% strong, is it possible that that person just doesn't even recognize it half of the time?
Yeah, like they're just not aware maybe.
Okay, so half of the time maybe they aren't aware that what specifically?
They're not aware of what's going on.
Okay. Okay. Like within themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then you're saying that somebody who is at 50% is halfway present. You mentioned being present and mindful, and then maybe halfway aloof or preoccupied.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
maybe they'll work out like, oh gosh, 3 to 4 times a week, maybe.
Okay, so think about this, somebody who's 50% strong, so like halfway in the middle, if somebody's working out 100% and somebody who doesn't even think that working out is an option because they have zero coping skills, they don't exercise, what might this 50% person do?
Work out 3 times a week.
Okay, so sure. Okay, and then let's do a 75%, right in the middle between 50 and 100. So we'll go ahead and put a 75 tally mark here, so 75% strong. And just briefly, what do you think a couple of characteristics for somebody who's 75% strong? So somebody who recognizes that.
So if they're 75% strong, like most of the time they get out of bed, so maybe like they get out of bed 5 days out of the week.
Okay. And what about their mental state? What would their mental state at 75% strong? What would that look like?
They're able to recognize what's going on.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Okay. So they have the awareness of what's going on. You said most of the time. Okay. Okay. And then last one, about how many times do you think that they would recognize and want to go work out if they were at 75% strength?
They probably work out like 5 times.
Yeah, probably. All right, and last one, 25%. Give me a couple of characteristics of what you think somebody, 25%. So 0%, remember, is sluggish, just a homebody, complete vegetable. 50%, half of the time they recognize and do.
So maybe they'll work out like 1 to twice a week.
Okay. Are they able to make it to class? Are they able to make it to work? Do they get out of bed?
Yeah, they'll probably get out of bed like 1 to 2 days.
Okay. Anything else?
I guess they're not always preoccupied.
Okay. Okay, so sitting back and looking at this, what are your immediate reactions to this?
Well, I definitely have kind of like pushed myself to work out, even though I don't want to. Like I've pushed myself to work out. Probably about 3 times.
Okay.
A week. Like 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay, so somewhere in this kind of area, so far, at least as far as the working out goes. What else? You mentioned that you were still going to class, so you were getting out of the house and interacting with friends.
Yeah, so my roommate takes me to the grocery store every Friday, so I do that. I get notes from my friends for the classes I can't go to. So I would say, I guess I'm not necessarily a 10.
Where might you put yourself now after just gone through that list of information? And for me, what that sounds like is your immediate reactions and providing the evidence to challenge maybe your original spot. thinking that you were at a 10% of strength. And so, again, by providing that evidence, it helped you challenge that thinking that I'm not as strong as I think I am, or that I thought I was.
Yeah.
So, where might you put yourself now?
I'd say probably like 40.
Show
So,
me where that might look like.
probably about like right here.
Okay.
Maybe 40%.
Sure.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, with working out and talking to my roommate and getting notes from friends and
Okay.
trying to go to class.
Awesome. So your voice sounds a little bit more upbeat than it originally was. So tell me what you think this means for you now after looking at this and moving from a 10% to 40.
I guess it's not as bad as I thought. You know, like sometimes I'm just like, Kelly, you aren't doing anything. But I guess I'm like putting it in here. I guess I'm doing more than I actually thought I was doing. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So by being able to see it and not see all of the criteria, it helped you put yourself out there and see that you were actually doing more than you were giving yourself credit for. So how might you use this information going forward?
I'd probably be a little bit more easy on myself.
Okay. So if you're easy on yourself, what might that do for you?
Release some of the stress, kind of give me hope to keep going. Because sometimes I really just don't want to do anything. But seeing that I'm actually doing stuff kind of gives me a little bit more hope that things might get better.